In this video, we're going to study Aesop's fable of the hawk and the nightingale. The hawk and the nightingale. As usual, we'll read through the fable together, and then we'll look at the characters, and then see if we can identify the moral, or at least one of the morals, that Aesop is teaching through this fable. Let's study together the fable of the hawk and the nightingale. A nightingale once fell into the clutches of a hungry hawk who had been all day on the lookout for food. "Pray let me go," said the nightingale. "I am such a mite for a stomach like yours. I sing so nicely, too. Do let me go. It will do you good to hear me." "Much good it will do to an empty belly," replied the hawk. "And besides, a little bird that I have is more to me than a great one that has yet to be caught." This is the fable of the hawk and the nightingale. So let's look at the characters in the fable, the characters that Aesop chooses to use to teach the moral that we'll talk about in a minute. First, we have a nightingale, and as the fable explains for us, a nightingale is a small bird that's known for its beautiful singing voice. The nightingale is a singing bird, a songbird, beautiful to listen to, small. And yet here in this fable we find that this nightingale is captured by another bird that's described as a hungry hawk. Now, a hawk is a predator. A hawk is a large bird that kills and eats small animals. Here on the farm, for example, we have to protect our large chickens from hawks, because even though chickens or hens can be large birds, large animals, a hawk will fly right down into the area where the hens are and take hold of one and rip it apart and eat it. Hawks are large, powerful birds that can eat pretty large animals. Not animals like goats and sheep, but they can eat chickens. They can eat smaller animals. A hawk could swoop down and attack a puppy or a kitten. They're powerful birds that can rip an animal apart in search of their food. So there's a hungry hawk and a nightingale. And it's important to note that the hawk is hungry. So he captures, first of all, he was out hunting for food all day. And apparently he didn't find any food except for this nightingale. And so he captures this nightingale, and the nightingale is pleading for her life, asking the hawk to please let her go. She says to the hawk, she makes two arguments with the hawk. First, she says, "I'm so small, I'm not even worth eating. I'm so small, a tiny little songbird. Why are you going to eat me? I'm not even going to satisfy your hunger." And then the second argument she makes is, "It's good for you to keep me alive because you can listen to me sing. I'll sing for you." So she makes two arguments with the hawk to try and keep herself alive. But the hawk is hungry. And being hungry, he has no interest in music. And since he's hungry and he's had an unsuccessful day where he hasn't been able to obtain any other food, he's going to be content with a small bird. And so we can assume that he goes ahead and eats the nightingale. Now, there's an important moral, of course, in this fable. And I think what Aesop wants to teach us is that we may say that something is beautiful or valuable, but it's only valuable and beautiful in certain conditions. When the conditions change, all of a sudden something that may have been valuable in one time is no longer valuable because there's a need for something else. A nightingale as a songbird is beautiful to listen to, but to a hungry hawk, he needs food. He's not interested in music. Now, in human life, we can look at things and say, it would be nice to have beautiful buildings, beautiful music, beautiful artwork. These things would be so nice. It would be so nice if men devoted their time and energy to designing and building beautiful churches and beautiful buildings, or composing beautiful music, or making great works of art, sculptures and paintings and so on. But that only happens when men are living in peace and they already have all of the necessary things in life provided for. If we look at the great periods in world history where the greatest works of art were produced, we'll find that those periods were wealthy and peaceful. It was wealthy and peaceful. Men had all the things they need to live, and they had leisure, which allowed them to pursue other interests. And in that peace and leisure and wealth, they pursued the fine arts, music and sculpture and painting and dancing and so on. But in times and places where life is difficult, where there's not enough money for everyone to eat, there's not enough food for everyone to share, the weather is bad and it's hard for people to find clothing. The weather is bad and it's hard to find good housing, or a time of war when people are hoping to simply stay alive, or a time where there's a natural disaster. When people are in need, the arts have no place. There's no place for the nightingale. There's no place for the musician. There's no place for the artist or the sculptor or the architect when people are hungry and in need of the basic things of life. And that's the moral of this fable here. The hawk was hungry and was looking for meat. He had no use for music, as beautiful as it might be. And so the fable teaches us about the importance of seeking necessary things of life, and that the arts and beautiful culture depend on wealth and peace and leisure. When the hawk is hungry, the nightingale's song is not desired. She's looked at as a source of meat and is eaten, even though she could produce beautiful music. So we can think about how the fable would apply to our life. One simple moral application of the fable is that we need to learn to be compassionate to others. We need to learn to think about whether people around us have their basic needs met before we start to make a big deal about the finer things in life. Just because I may have wealth and peace and leisure at a certain time doesn't mean that my neighbors have all that they need. And before I worry about the finer things of life, I need to make sure that my neighbors have the basic things of life. There's no need or use for a nightingale when the hawk is hungry and there's no food. So we need to learn to think about the needs of others and not just our own condition. If we have peace and leisure and wealth, we need to consider the needs of others and not judge them if they don't value the things we value, because they may not value them for a reason, and that reason may be a good reason. Maybe they don't build the church a certain way because they don't have enough money, or there are people in the parish who are hungry and they would rather help those people or provide for their education or help them find work than worry about how the church looks or how the music sounds or how the paintings are being produced to decorate the church, when there are real needs in the church, or more important things that are priorities. So it teaches us to be careful in judging, because a hawk may not value a nightingale, not because he's just, stupid, or he doesn't know to value the right things, or he doesn't love beautiful things, but because he's hungry. And so we can see this moral. There's a saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What that means is beauty is something that everyone judges for himself. One person calls one thing beautiful. Another person thinks that's ugly and thinks another thing is beautiful. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And this fable relates to that moral, because the hawk being hungry has no value for the nightingale's song. So I think it's clear enough what the moral lesson could be, or at least what one moral lesson can be. As we always say, there could be more than one moral lesson in a fable, but that's a clear one, right? That a hungry hawk won't value the nightingale's song. That's a good way to remember this fable. So let's look at it quickly one more time, and then we'll wrap up this lesson. The fable of the hawk and the nightingale. A nightingale once fell into the clutches of a hungry hawk, who had been all day on the lookout for food. "Pray let me go," said the nightingale. "I am such a mite for a stomach like yours. I sing so nicely, too. Do let me go. It will do you good to hear me." "Much good it will do to an empty belly," replied the hawk. "And besides, a little bird that I have is more than a great one that has yet to be caught." The fable of the hawk and the nightingale. God bless your studies.